I don't know about you guys, but I spend most of my gaming time playing multiplayer shooters with friends or just by myself. Every now and then a single player game will come out where I'll dedicate a week or two to playing it until I see the credits roll, and usually I'll leave it at that. I'm not much of a completionist. And then I'll just go back to playing multiplayer shooters with the boys. But Doom Eternal was one of those games that just hit differently, and I return to it often just for the single player experience. Now there are many factors at play here as to what makes Doom Eternal such a fun game to play, but there are two in particular that really stand out the most to me. One being the combat loop and just how engaging the AI is in the game. Like, the AI is so satisfying to fight that it's even more fun than fighting players controlling AI in battle mode. Like, that's just how good the AI is in this game. And secondly, the game's movement systems, which is what I'm mostly going to be talking about today. You see, I recently returned to Doom 2016, and even though the AI in combat still holds up, it's not quite as good as Eternal's, but it's there. The movement systems is what really sets these two games apart and what makes Doom Eternal just so much more fun. Even at its most basic movement mechanics, Doom Eternal has dashing and double jumping, along with basic environmental movement mechanics such as gravity lifts or monkey bars. So even at its most basic, Doom Eternal still has more advanced movement mechanics than your average shooter these days. The only other games I can really think of that go beyond this would be games like Titanfall 2 or Ultra Kill. Seriously, if you love boomer shooters and advanced movement mechanics, then you owe it to yourself to play Ultra Kill. You can do some crazy shit with that game's movement systems, and I highly recommend it. But getting back to Doom Eternal, these are just the game's basic movement mechanics. There are more advanced techniques that you can use in arenas and to traverse the environments to get from A to B quicker, and it just makes the game so much more fun and fluid once you master them. Such as bunny hopping, which is a technique that's probably as old as the FPS genre itself, but it's been around for a very long time. It's in a lot of games, and once mastered, B hopping can get you from A to B super duper quick. And then there's also ballista boosting, where you use the backwards kick recoil of the ballista to gain some momentum while you're in the air. And when used in tandem with animation cancelling, you can cover some vast distances really quick and build some crazy momentum. And then of course there is the meat hook grapple, which just gives you so much more mobility options in your arena fights, and it's just such a fantastic mechanic. And just like everything else, there are advanced techniques where you can yeet hook yourself across a map, give yourself a breather during a tense situation, or speedrunning. All these strats are fantastic for speedrunning. And even though I'm not a speedrunner, I still love this game's movement systems and what you can do with it, so much so that two of my rune slots are dedicated to movement. The first being Blood Fueled, which gives you a great speed boost after performing a glory kill, and Air Control, which greatly increases your movement while in the air, and it just makes air strafing and just overall air movement so much easier, fluid and smooth. However, I do think that this is one of Doom Eternal's biggest sins, and I firmly believe that Air Control should not be optional or selectable perk. It should be part of the Slayer's base movement. And to id Software, whatever your next project may be, if it's another Doom game, a spiritual successor, if you're going with a similar game with similar mechanics and this whole rune upgrade system, I truly hope that Air Control just becomes base movement mechanic and it's not tied to an optional perk. I imagine there's so many people out there who have never even tried Air Control because it doesn't seem to have much utility, but in shooters these days, movement is just as important as your shooting and aiming skills. Sometimes what separates those who can beat the game on Ultra Nightmare versus those who can't is just how much better their movement is. I personally play a lot of Apex Legends, and even though I have a solid aim in the game, sometimes I have off days, and the only thing that separates me from winning my fights versus my opponents is that my movement was better than theirs. And for a lot of people who enjoy first-person shooters, understanding and mastering their movement mechanics is super rewarding and addictive. Even players who have an average aim skill but have a deep understanding of a game's movement mechanics can be some of the most dangerous players in those games. Even to this day, people still play on bunny hop and movement servers on Counter-Strike because they're just incredibly addicted to movement systems. And for me, when I play a game like Titanfall, I don't particularly enjoy the shooting mechanics too much. They're kind of simple and generic, but what keeps bringing me back to that game is understanding the game's movement systems and trying to master them the best I can. It's kind of hard to say exactly what it is, but there's just something rewarding about being able to move fast and smooth and fluid and do it all in a first-person shooter perspective. And I think this is something that Doom Eternal has really mastered, and it makes a single player game feel like it's giving you that fast-paced adrenaline multiplayer experience. Doom Eternal has awoken a lot of people's inner speed demon, and I hope that going forward with the next game, that their movement systems either match Eternal's or they go even further. Because once you get a taste for going fast in a first-person shooter, it's really hard to go back to a more slower and traditional paced game. Again, going back to Apex Legends, when I play a character like Octane, who, for those of you who don't know, he's basically a speed junkie. He has a stim boost which makes him run really fast, he has a jump pad which launches him really far across the map. When you play a character like him, it's so much fun. It's like an adrenaline dump straight into your veins, and it's a really fun character to play. And then when I switch back to a non-mobility based character such as Bangalore, I still have fun with the game, of course, because I love Apex, but it's just not the same experience as playing as an Octane and just beaming across the map like as fast as you can. And this separation exists within Doom. Like when you go from Eternal back to 2016, it's night and day how different it is with the movement mechanics, and that's why it's so hard to go back and enjoy 2016 now, because Doom Eternal's movement is just so much fun. And basically the whole point of this video is just to get across how much I really enjoy this game's movement, how much I enjoy movement in general, how important I think movement is in first-person shooters, and how I hope going forward in the future with id Software's next game that they keep that fast adrenaline junkie pace going. If anything, I'd love for them to kick it up a few notches to ludicrous speed and just go at an absolute breakneck pace. But of course, I'm interested to hear everybody else's thoughts and opinions on this subject, so leave them below. And thanks for watching the video and making it this far. I appreciate it, and I shall see you all in the next one. So take care and good night.